Now we will move on to a very important topic. Let's consider the work of intelligence. The feature of this lecture will be that a certain image will be presented, and in order to thoroughly play out all the elements that will be discussed, a lot of time is required. So don't be alarmed if something is unclear. It simply takes a significant amount of time to demonstrate all of this in reality. The mechanism will be provided, and for those who wish to try to play it out in practice as it happens, you may do so. Please. The only thing required is a decent amount of time, several hours, and so on. Here we will limit ourselves to the very course of the discussion, that is, the logic of reasoning, how it all unfolds, and we will draw conclusions. So, let's proceed to the consideration of the work of intelligence. Intellect comes from the Latin intellectus, which translates to Russian as mind, reason, judgment, consideration. Generally speaking, everyday consciousness has lost the meaning of these words, although there is a certain meaning here. Let's say, is a dog smart, or are animals not smart? That is, what is mind? What is reasoning? What is consideration? What is reason? Here. But this is a subject for a separate conversation. Here we will say that intelligence is a self-changing, self-adjusting algorithm for selecting and transforming information, as a result of which informational modules arise that were previously unknown to that intelligence and did not come to it ready from the outside. They did not exist before. That is, if a diagram like this is drawn here, it can illustrate any process, which means to develop new informational modules. Primitive man had to prepare food for himself. And what algorithm did he have? He found sticks, created fire by friction, lit a fire, took a pot, or skewered game, or a piece of meat on a stick, and roasted it over the fire before eating. Then he thought, why should I burn things over the fire? And parallel to lighting the fire, he made himself a pot, or clay vessel, put food in the clay pot, hung the pot over the fire, which led to the same action, to the same result. But the volume of his actions increased. Well, and here this is, so to speak, shown, and now an electric stove is already turned on, meaning an electric kettle and so on, and the result is the same. So what is this about? That every algorithm is a certain specific measure. Therefore, within this specific measure, some flows of information occur. And due to the expansion of this specific measure, that is intelligence, meaning the development of new informational modules that allow achieving certain goals. Therefore, intelligence is the process of expanding a certain specific measure. Thus, intelligence always exists. In management or self-management, according to the full management function, remember, we discussed the full management function, and there we said that one can manage according to the full function only by possessing creativity and intelligence. That is, one must be able to identify the factors that affect you, your system. It is necessary to develop and formulate goals, include them in the overall vector of goals, and develop a management concept. And what does it mean to develop a management concept? To determine how and what needs to be done. What lies behind this? What lies behind this is the work of intelligence, the ability to produce new informational modules that would ensure the completion of the assigned tasks. That is, the full management function implies the presence of intelligence, that is, the ability to expand one specific measure to produce new informational modules. And further, the meaning of the entire lecture is for you to understand what will be discussed now. Is it only humans who possess intelligence? Or do other systems also possess intelligence? Right now we will reflect on this. In the case of losing intelligence, there are also losses in management. And you know, various drunkards, they degrade from the example of Yeltsin and lose control. Earlier he walked somewhere, performed on tanks, then later on a tank in general. Later he performed generally, then on a tank. I only read from a piece of paper and couldn't put two words together. Some scientists are talking about artificial intelligence in many different areas. When posing such a question about artificial intelligence, the task is set, which we have already discussed. Intelligence is a universal phenomenon, And then a person is one of many intelligences. Existing in the universe, or intelligence belongs only to humans, and then humans are unique. Here is information for thought. Now we will consider and show that intelligence is possessed not only by humans, but also by certain other systems, including the universe as a whole. And we will come to understand how this all works. We will examine this using the example of playing roulette. Here, in this picture, is the game of roulette. Do you know what this is? The spindle spins, usually the ball spins. It pulls on this spindle, the ball rotates, and it lands on a certain number. And let us have two players. One, a cobblestone represents the environment, and the brick represents the system. The system is connected to the lottery drum. Here stands Themis with her eyes closed. This is indeed the judge who decides the outcomes. All of this happens behind the curtain. And so these cobblestone and brick, the environment and the system, will spin this drum, while the judge will carefully monitor their actions in this process. As a result, the cobblestone and brick, the environment and the system, will come out from behind the curtain, and having acquired the necessary cards, you will then see them perform a scene between a student and a professor, a schoolboy and a professor, a teacher. And it will indeed turn out that both the cobblestone and the brick will possess intelligence. How will this unfold? That is, we will examine the information process based on deliberately non-intelligent elements and rigid algorithms, that is, on strict rules. That is, this cobblestone and this brick separately clearly do not possess intelligence, but as a result of certain manipulations and actions, it will turn out that they suddenly possess intelligence. How does this happen? Let's see. So, we are playing roulette. The environment, in a mesmerizing and captivating manner, rotates around its axis not once, but twice, creating a fascinating and intriguing spectacle. Initially, the first time, the tau duration time is set for the system, within which it must make a response action. It spins the drum, and when the ball drops, it indicates the duration of time within which the system must make a move. Then it spins a second time, and a number drops that will be compared with the system's number. Then, as a second step, the system starts to spin with the drum. What are they doing? First, they spin the roulette for the allotted time by the environment, meaning it spins several times. There is a large and transparent lottery drum. Numbered balls with previously drawn numbers are placed inside, and carefully. That is, the drum accumulates all the experience of the game between the system and the environment. That is, in fact, spherical objects with the drawn numbers are conditionally placed there. As a result of the spinning, two numbers are obtained. The first is the maximum from the set of numbers drawn in the roulette, and the maximum number from the set drawn from the drum. That is, two numbers are obtained. Both of these numbers are carefully and clearly written on clean numbered balls and then gently placed back into the drum. In the next step after that, the system tosses a fair coin. The coin flip means what people say, that even an old woman can make a mistake. That is, when an obviously incorrect result is accepted instead of a known correct one, meaning yes or no. And based on its outcome, ultimately from the coin flip, one is chosen from these two numbers. And this one is it. This is the system's response to the environment's move. The system's response to the environment's move. As a result, ultimately, the judge Themis, whom we saw, has what? The second number of the environment and the response number of the system. That is, the second number of the environment, what it chose, and the response number of the system. The judge gives cards based on these numbers and assigns them accordingly. Based on the number, it gives a corresponding question. This is in the middle. The system, designed for efficient data processing and analysis, uses a specific algorithm to determine the most suitable answer from a predefined set of possible numbers or values, and based on the system's number, it gives one answer to this question from a set of numbers. The correctness, that is, the breadth of the answer, is determined by the difference of the numbers. The closer the numbers match, the greater the correctness, although it can also be done the other way around. That is, this needs to be determined at the beginning of the game, when a stack of cards accumulates the environment. This is a professor, let it be for us. And the brick, this is the system, this is a schoolboy. They go out to the audience and play, acting out a scene of an exam where the schoolboy looks increasingly smarter from question to question in front of them. That is, he becomes showing his intelligence. Moreover, his intelligence is developing. As the lottery drum gradually and steadily accumulates balls, the losses in this roulette system can increasingly be compensated by winnings drawn from this very same lottery drum. That is, in a pair of question-answer cards, there are increasingly correct answers, and the intellectual scale of the system can be raised. If you place some initial capital in the drum, balls with numbers that guarantee the possibility of something, or impossibility, that is, which guarantee avoiding a catastrophic loss, you can simply remove the coin toss from the game, and then the system can choose the larger of the numbers rather than opting for a clearly losing option. The performance of the roulette and drums can be increased so that the system can extract a greater number of numbers, allowing it to accumulate more experience. The viewer does not see everything that happens behind the curtain, and therefore for them, this scene, possessing intelligence, judges the intelligence of the scaler, as the scalar system appears intelligent, until you look behind the scenes. That is, what happens over there, a cobblestone with a brick, actually appears to the viewers as intelligence. What is described in this entire game is one of the possible models that, when viewed from the outside at its information flows, appears as intelligence. There is such a game theory, and many variations can be considered within it. But this is the most acceptable option. And for those who want, now that I've explained this, you can try to create similar balls, the same system, cards, question-answer, play around, and you'll see that it will be exactly like that. And now, having created such an image of how this happens, let's look at the universe. In the universe, look, planets, galaxies, comets are spinning, and there is a human here. Remember how this is arranged. So, the entire universe. In the universe, who will be the participants of the game? Roulette. These are probabilistic predeterminations to which natural processes are subject. Probabilistic predeterminations to which certain natural processes are subject. The outcome of a number in roulette, what is it? It is a specific measure. It is the codes of objective information that exist in the universe. The systematic correspondence of question-answer by card in the process of. This is a specific case of the general property of reflecting information from one fragment of the universe to another and back into the external environment, flowing in a common measure for them, a universal information code. That is, multidimensional probabilistic matrices of possible states of matter. What we have thoroughly examined and discussed with you, this funnel with carefully considered and analyzed stepped edges in detail. And here, unlike the casino in Monte Carlo, can you imagine, look again at this picture. What informational flows are flowing throughout the universe due to oscillations, which has a hierarchically multi-level code, a measure that governs the correspondence of direct and inverse reflection through probabilistic predeterminations. That is, incommensurable flows of information, colossal flows of information that have occurred in the universe for millions and billions of years. Judge Themis is a multidimensional probabilistic matrix of possible states of matter. That is, the measure in which everything flows. And it determines, therefore, correctness or incorrectness. Remember, we defined the target vectors that coincide with divine predetermination, the drum of lottery memory. This is a structure that captures information more or less fully and accurately at a certain hierarchical level of the organization of the universe. That is, the fixation of this information, the auditorium, a place for events and performances. This is the drum, a crucial instrument in music. Together with the drum, this is consciousness, behind which, that is, in the subconscious, there is exactly the same memory drum and its duplicate roulette. This is how one intellectual, in a manner that is both thoughtful and insightful, evaluates or assesses another intellectual. The situation becomes complicated when there are three drums behind consciousness. So here you see the same picture. The viewers have consciousness and the subconscious, that is the subconscious. And here, in this diagram, what is there? One drum is completely filled. And there, well, what to refer to? It is already filled. That's it. So, current information is being filled here. This is the current stage of evolution. If there is a previously past stage of development here, then here is the current stage of evolution. And the third drum, completely empty, represents the upcoming stage of evolution. There is nothing to refer to there yet, because there is no information. What I have described can be interpreted with another picture. Another representation of the three-drum game is possible. What is it about? Hierarchically, the highest encompassing control, God, there is everything. There is a completely filled drum. All the information is there. They possess all completeness. Intermediate hierarchies in the universe, fragments of the universe, and so on, possess an incomplete measure of understanding, something like that. Well, finally, here is a schoolboy standing. He has a little bit of knowledge and so on. And then the question arises. If you turn here, you can get an answer through the subconscious, through a sense of measure. But in such a scheme, it is always necessary to clearly understand that this schoolboy must in any case acknowledge the existence of all this. If he does not even acknowledge such existence, that is, he does not find it necessary to turn to anyone, then he will naturally not receive any answers. And even when such answers are given to him, if he does not understand what this is, he does not see that there is a hint in the language of life circumstances for him. Thus, here is an interpretation of another representation. Therefore, indeed, a question may certainly and naturally arise, and it should arise. And what essentially sets all this in motion here, what initiates it in motion, is what can be called the principle of completeness and wholeness of the universe. This principle of completeness and integrity of the universe asserts that universes contain everything necessary for the fulfillment of the entire cycle and their existence. This principle was actually outlined in our ancient Russian tales, particularly in the Vedas, in the glorification of Triglav. You read this glorification of Triglav, and from the perspective of what we have already discussed, compare it. It precisely states that everything in the universe is ordered, interdependent, and mutually conditioned, and all processes occur in harmony with God's predestination. That is, this completeness is outlined there. Therefore, everything that was said in the ancient language can now be represented in some way from the perspective of modern knowledge. First, the universe exists as a process. That is, everything in it flows, everything changes. This is obvious. Second, in essence, its fragments are structures that interact and communicate with each other, developing under the influence of the environment, that is, including other structures. Third, how does the influence of the environment and the interaction of structures occur? It is probabilistically predetermined and hierarchical. It is reflected in statistical patterns, meaning there is statistics of cause and effect relationships, representation, an informational process carried by a universally natural and hierarchically multi-level system of information encoding on various material carriers. The response of the structure and the changes occurring within it are also representations, also an informational process, occurring in the same encoding system at levels encompassed by the structure, subordinate to the same probabilistic predeterminations reflected in the statistics. And the response has a probabilistic nature at each level of the universal system of information encoding. Resonant phenomena are very important. Resonant phenomena in hierarchically multi-level structures manifest as statistically more frequent and rarer informationally diverse responses depending on the state vectors of the environment and the structure at the moment of their interaction. Sixth, as the structures accumulate information in the statistics of their responses to environmental influences, fewer errors occur that harm the structure, and the responses acquire unambiguous certainty in terms of the predictability of the representations of the response to the influence. And lastly, seventh, the interaction of the environment and the structure in which diverse behavior manifests at this hierarchical level in terms of ambiguous predictability shifts the impact response into the realm of increasingly rare influencing factors. Information saturation occurs at a certain level of organization and structure, and the process transitions to the next hierarchical level of a unified natural system of information encoding. Well, what I just said here, let's try to illustrate it with a picture so that there is simplicity of understanding. Look, here is the approach to understanding. There is literally one structure and there is another structure. So, each structure, according to its immediateness, possesses material. It possesses information and is endowed with a measure. That is, the three unities of matter, information, and measure. Do you know what happens? Here is structure A and here is structure B. Structure A influences in some way. It pecked like a rooster there. That is, it carried out some informational influence. X. The same. For example, a ray of sunshine fell on a brick. The brick began to heat up from the ray of sunshine. The quantum received heat. Influence. X. In accordance with this influence, the measure possessed by this structure changed. The influence occurred as soon as the informational influence took place, immediately in one direction or another, good or bad. That is already a different big question, but the measure changes. The measure changed in one direction or another. The informational state was disrupted. Here, a plus appeared in the informational state, and the matter somehow slightly deformed. That is, it heated up. Now once again thump. The exact same influence. Another quantum. The measure also shifted. Yes, and the response here, in the first diagram, is random. So what? Well, it heated up and heated up. That's it. So, if it thumped again, the measure changed again, specifically in a certain direction. The impact is the same, meaning it heated up even more. Accordingly, the informational state also, so to speak, changed in one direction. Both the measure and the matter, well, they also, so to speak, heated up. And now what happens next? The response is again here. Well, practically randomly. And then it goes like thump, 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 thump. Imagine a century. It turns out this is the same impact. So the measure changes. The information becomes saturated. The matter changes. And at one fine moment, the thump response is probabilistically predetermined. That is, what a bang and the stone broke apart over the water from overheating there. And over time it turned into sand. But this is mechanistically, I certainly understand that such a representation exists, but it at least provides an understanding of how this happens through the three unities. That is, if the oscillatory, and all processes in the universe are oscillatory, if the same oscillations occur, they will probably predeterminedly cause a response that corresponds to the meaning of these oscillations. Do you understand? That's it. Now let's look further at how this happens. So, about what we were talking about, the structure responds to the response probabilistically predetermined. Well, and here it is like this, the environment. There is an element of a supersystem that has memory, and here is the environment. Once it thumped, the response is random. Twice it thumped, the response is random. So it thumped, 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 and finally, the response is probabilistically predetermined. The response is formed in the process of combination, based on a random selection of information modules in the memory of the structure. That is, it is determined by a predetermined measure, a matrix of possible states,